the problem with the pandemic because we get called to work any time of the day, even during weekends. Now, we are both retired, Marlyn and I, but we're still consulting with our previous offices, with our respective previous offices. Now, start sharing,
Yes.
Sister, Father Ben?
Yes,
Okay.
go ahead. You have full control of the time.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear the sound?
Yes, I hear you.
Thank you.
Earth's creator, everyday God, loving maker, oh Jesus, you who shaped us, oh Spirit, recreate us, come be with us in your presence, everyday God, we are gathered. You have called us, oh Spirit, to restore us, come be with us, life of all lives.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
Earth's creator, everyday God, loving maker, oh Jesus, you who shaped us, oh Spirit, recreate us, come be. Our dreaming, in our daring, in our searching, in our sharing, God of laughter, God of sorrow,
Okay, I hope the song inspires us all during this session because I, as a lay person with a family, really need such an inspiration in our daily life. And God's presence through Jesus Christ, through prayer, hopefully be with us during this session. Our topic assigned to me for today is the spirituality of the heart from the perspective of family life in the digital age. Now, most of the things I have written here have been researched because I myself am some sort of a dinosaur when it comes to social media and IT, and I rely a lot on my wife and my children to be able to navigate this, for me, complex things. Even the mobile phone is getting so complex that I'd like to go back to my old analog phone. But there's no escaping the digital age or the fourth revolution or something. There, this has been called a lot of things, and it is here with us. Now, just to refresh ourselves, Father Jules Chevalier and uh, the successors, the bishops, who or the priests who further formulated his devotion into a spirituality called the spirituality of the heart, is about the experience of God's love in our daily lives, as expressed in the compassionate heart of Jesus through our relationship with God, with others, especially the family and our co-workers and the whole of creation. It's just a reminder or a summary so that you will know where I'm coming from when I talk of the spirituality of the heart. So during the time of Father Jules, uh, these were the evils that he faced or he was facing: religious indifference, lack of faith and love, moral and social decadence. Unfortunately, for me at least, I think we still have this three in our culture and society, at least here in the Philippines. While we are called the only religious or the only Catholic country in this part of the world, um, the the people I know just comply with the Sunday Mass obligation, and that's it as far as their faith is concerned. And well, a lot of things uh, has happened since Christianity came through the Spaniards, the Spanish colonizers. But it's really unfortunate that I still observe these particular evils that Father Jules observed during his time in the 1800s. Well, moral and social decadence is still very much around, at least in the Philippines. I can just uh, cry and express my anguish when President Rodrigo Duterte and President Bongbong Marcos won. Yeah, because for me, uh, they represent something undesirable as far as living the faith is concerned. And I think this has been borne out very well during the term of President Duterte. Just for purposes of discussion, uh, I'd like to make some categories with regards to spirituality and religion and faith. For this, for my purposes during this presentation, I'd look at religion as the institutional church, connoting rules, traditions, teachings, theologies, and practices. And faith is adherence to a religion, defining one's trust, beliefs, and life. And spirituality is the daily living of this religion and faith. It's a source of meaning and provides wholeness under God's love because uh, the faith is not only in the mind and in the heart, but it's also in the way we live and relate with others daily. Well, there are some other writers who put it differently, like religion overall is faith, and then there's adherence or belief in the institution, the rules, the traditions, the teachings, the theologies, and spirituality, the living of this faith. There are lots of writers who look at this slightly differently, but for this particular session, I'll be focusing particularly on the term spirituality. Spirituality is a gift, a grace, uh, without which I don't think we will be able to live our faith properly. It's a decision and a commitment. Uh, it's an act of will, not only an act of the heart, and not only actions, but it's everything. It's a dynamic process. It changes, especially if we are serious in uh, studying Jesus and the Gospels or reflecting on them at least every day. A lot of changes will happen in our spirituality. And in this sense, it is very powerful because this will push us. This will be the basis of how we live our lives, especially in the context of the family. This will be the basis of the resilience of the family. And at the same time, it is a challenge and a mission. We are not called only to live our faith in the family, but in the greater society as well, in the neighborhood, in the parish, and even in the whole country. The context of our times is basically the COVID pandemic. Uh, it has been with us since early 2020 with severe lockdowns experienced here in the Philippines. Wars and armed conflicts. There's not so much here in the country anymore, but we see this in other countries like Russia and Ukraine, and maybe some other smaller countries in Africa, if there are still ongoing conflicts there. South America, I'm not hearing so much armed conflict anymore. Social, political, economic, social structures that promote political and economic inequality. Until the present time, through several presidents, through several programs, development programs, short-term, mid-term, long-term development programs, I think our country at least is still in the same social, political, economic uh, boat that is terribly leaking and terrible for a lot, for the majority of the Filipinos. And these particular social structures have been with us for quite some time. And despite several attempts uh, from the young, from the religious, from other sectors of society, nothing seems to be working properly, or at least has effects in the long term. We're intolerant. We're intolerant. There are intolerant or incompetent governments. There's a lot of commercialism in the economic side as well as the social side. We're just daily bombarded by advertisements on how to become prettier, stronger, healthier, which is good, etc. And secularism. The secularism during the time of Father Jules is still very much around, and looks like our faith is merely or largely just lip service to what should really be uh, in all our relationships, characterizing all of them the way that Jesus taught us. And to continue the context also, there's too much focus on the self, satisfaction of material and utilitarian desires. Well, I guess there's nothing wrong with wanting a good life, a better life, your own house, your own car, a good education for your family, for your children and or grandchildren, etc. But of course, for me, uh, these are not my priorities. Maybe not anymore since I retired from active work already, but there was a time in my life that this was my priority. And this was the time which I call personally my dark ages. The present culture wants to delete God from our lives. Well, talking about social media and gadgets and everything, God is just very far from our normal lives. So, as I see it, meaning and wholeness comes only when the self is connected to God. Unfortunately, there is very little realization of this particular and important need. And of course, our topic for today, the digital internet revolution or transformation, social media, computer games, etc., and how they have come to play important and major parts in our lives, both the young and the old, both for pleasure, for entertainment, and also for work. The context of spirituality and the family is something that I think uh, should be spread in all our parishes. The family is the seedbed, meaning it's really the source, it's the beginning of this connection or spirituality, this connection with our faith and our daily living. Because the family is where we develop and mature in. This is where we get our identity, especially when in our younger years, our competence and autonomy. This is where we learn our trust and fidelity for others and our love. Our identity versus our relationships and what the individual, my person, how it can relate with God and with others. Well, this is something that is just mainly also for reference. Although I don't agree with some of these particular items, Eric Erickson is a sociologist, and this is how he studied and developed the link between the age of a person, the issues or crisis during different stages in the life of person, virtues, and the vices that go with them. No? It's a matter probably of, for us and for this topic, of being conscious of these particular issues, virtues, and vices versus the particular age group of our children or of the members of our family. And this will not really be the content of our talk, but it's, I think, a good reference for some of the things we will discuss later. Well, to start with, the digital revolution, the fourth industrial revolution, or some other names that it has been called, started some 40 to 50 years ago. Actually, it started during the war, but this was in the stage of the mainframes, and it's not so widespread. Application has been in government mainly and big business. This is the age of the big computers, not the tablets and the desktops and the laptops. But I think in the 80s, the desktop started coming out and becoming developed. I still remember the floppy disks that we load on these desktops, no? And then this later on evolved into tablets and cell phones. Our smartphones now can do a lot of computing also. Now, with this particular facility, no, technological facility, social media exploded starting about 10, 15 years ago, no? With Facebook and the others that I don't hear anymore, and Instagram and others. And these were easily accepted and liked, even liked by preteens, teens, young adults. Dinosaurs like me are not very particular about uh, these facilities. This industrial revolution or digital revolution affects all aspects of our lives. Economically, especially during the pandemic, many or much of the work done, especially by uh, people in the knowledge industry, were done through Zoom, through
Kahit
through
nasan
some.
po ako, binabawal ko rin. Kaya lang ang problema, pagka nawala na yung teacher, balik sila doon sa dati.
Okay, may I continue? Uh, the digital revolution affects all aspects of our lives. The economics of it, our work, our social relationships, educationally. Some schools are still not into face-to-face classes. Some have decided to use the first quarter as some sort of a preparatory stage before doing face-to-face. But many schools, especially the public school, already started face-to-face classes. Spiritually also, especially during the pandemic, that's when we started to have online masses. And although sometimes our parish priest or the lay ministers go around and distribute communion. Uh-oh. Uh, Excuse me, but doesn't want to move. Okay, especially during the pandemic. Now, the digital revolution or transformation has a lot of benefits. Mamaya, later on, I will mention the risks, the adverse side of these particular things. Benefits, it fosters mental, emotional, psychological, and as well as health. No? There are lots of things we can do that can help us with our gadgets. No? We can have fun. We can make and maintain friendships and relationships. And this will not cover only our local friends, but global connections as well. Our Zoom meetings in the MS Chevalier group now includes former seminarians who are in the US, in Australia, enhances digital media literacy through the building of skills and knowledge to enjoy online activities for one and avoidance of online risks. It induces a lot of learning as well, no? Sharing educational content, formally or informally, enhances creativity as well. The design of profile pages, the use of photos and videos, applications such as PowerPoint and now Canva, uh, they make Canva makes beautiful presentations and videos, and even the modification of games. It enhances connectivity, of course. But the worst side of the benefits, the risks, and these are of our particular concern, especially when it comes to the younger ones, the preteens and the teens also. Uh, some of the risks are being exposed to inappropriate or upsetting content. Even if I do not consciously deal with people who are used to uh, putting out inappropriate content in social media, I still get exposed to them because I just find them there when I open, let's say, the Facebook app in my phone or laptop. Uploading and sharing of inappropriate content, sharing personal information, addresses, phone numbers, which unscrupulous people can take advantage of. Exposure to too much targeted advertising and marketing. Ah, almost every time I open YouTube, there is an advertisement there. When I look for songs for the word heart sharing, there are always advertisements. Even in Facebook, every other post in my, what do you call this, in my page, uh, there are alternate advertisements. Data breaches, and this is a bit dangerous, cyberbullying. This is especially true of the younger users. Embarrassing and provocative photos and videos. Oh, it's really very strange that Facebook is allowing the posting of some photos and videos that are almost pornographic, almost. Very sexy and suggestive photos and videos of the sexual nature, of meanness and aggressiveness, violence. Almost all video content in Facebook are from movies or clips of movies and TV series with a lot of violence there. And of course, the proliferation of fake news, which unfortunately Facebook management has not been able to really control. Well, I've read some articles regarding some observed effects on elementary students of too much social media exposure. They observe violent behavior. Well, uh, some students going using guns and shooting other students in schools. We have heard of or seen in media happening in the US and I think in Europe. Inattentiveness, short attention spans, lack of concentration. I can really observe this with my granddaughter because she'd rather go out and play and watch YouTube instead of concentrating on her homework. They become short tempered, impulsive, hyperactive, and conduct problems such as laziness, answering back. A lot of the words they use come from social media, from games, or uh, other apps that they go into. Now, some notes regarding these effects. The negative effects may develop in different age groups, and however, some negative effects on some may be positive effects on others. May hurt younger kids' ability to form relationships, but for older children, maybe for teens, it enhances uh, their way of forming relationships and maintaining them. May hamper creativity in some, but helps a lot in others. May spur too much focus. However, more studies are really needed because the newness of these developments will not really give us a complete picture at this time. More studies, I think, and are recommended by a lot of other people. Well, if we're going to deal with this social media, this IT or this digital revolution, and watch out for the risks on our children, on the young ones as well as the teens, is banning the use of social media and the internet useful or recommended? Well, it will be difficult to ban the use of social media because it is everywhere. Yeah? The neighbor,
As possible, kung makano kasi man, si Ma'am Christian naman ang ano eh. Oo, pero kung walang-wala talaga, di yun na lang.
May timeline po ba tayo hanggang kailan yung bibigay natin ng
Father Ben
considering na
Roquero,
yung request
please
ng
mute
mga
yourself. Father Ben Roquero, please mute yourself. Thank you.
there's social media there. No? She can borrow, or my granddaughter can borrow her cousin's gadgets, no? And vice versa. No? When the cousins are not allowed to use gadgets during certain times of the day, they come here and they share gadgets with my granddaughter. There will always be this temptation to use social media outside of the home if they cannot use it there. And missing opportunities to engage them on the proper use and respectful behavior if they're banned. So we cannot really talk to them about it. So what is suggested is, uh, Father Ben, we're about halfway through. Would you like to call a break?
Is this after your how? Do you want to have a break after that slide?
Yeah, this is we're about halfway through these slides.
Okay. So do you want to present the how or do you want to have a break now?
Marami pa yung how, Father.
Oh, sige. So you like to have a break now?
Yeah, I suggest.
Okay. Okay. We'll have a break.
5-minute break.
5 minutes?
Yes, I guess.
Okay, let's have a 5-minute break. We will come back at 2:25.
Okay, see you later.
Okay, thank you, Cha. We'll begin in 2 minutes. Okay, can we start now? Go ahead, Joe.
Okay, so if we're not going to ban the use of social media at home, uh, what are we to do? Well, I would like to consider the following as uh, as discipline, as part of the discipline, especially for the children. And by discipline, I do not mean sparing the rod and spoiling the child or something like that. No? But what I mean by discipline is a way of life, something that the children, especially the children, can get used to. It will be part of their daily routine. Okay. I think the first and most important thing is talk to them, engage with them, and not to impose from above. There are a lot of things that can happen if we order them, but when we try to talk to them and engage them, and one of the principles of this particular way of life or discipline is getting them to understand what we are talking about and what we want them to do. You know? Talk to them about what they do and their experiences. Use their own language as much as possible. They are fond of using initials like NP for no problem, etc. But I guess these are more for the teens. The I haven't seen this yet with the preteens. About their experience of God whenever possible. Well, as I guess as early as 5 or 6 years old, somehow we can already talk to them about God and our faith. No? But of course, this and all the other things that we follow will have to be age appropriate. And I think Erickson's matrix will be a bit helpful here. Use positive reinforcement whenever possible and listen to them, accompany them. I guess it is always a child's desire to have somebody with them. Sometimes my granddaughter would ask me to accompany her just to walk around the block. And it's just something, I guess, that they want to do, and they'd rather do it with somebody else. But listening and accompanying them in a lot of other things will be very, very helpful for their development and growth. When possible, teach them virtues again. This would be age appropriate. No? Virtues such as uh, compassion for others, those who are hungry, insecure, suffering, lonely, aimless. When beggars knock on our door, my daughter would sometimes be the one to open the door, and well, she would call me because that's our instruction to her. Call the older people if there are strangers outside the door. So when they call me and we give something to those beggars, and one time she asked me, Lolo, who are they? What do they want? Huh? So I told them that they were victims of fire in their community, and they're a bit hard up. They have no homes. They just stay in evacuation centers, and they run out of food because the donations are not enough. So explaining to them a little bit, and they get to understand why I give something to these people. How they want to be treated online and how to treat others. I guess this is very important, especially if they are communicating already. Even in games, there are already facilities to talk to the person that they are playing with. Values such as fidelity, generosity, meekness, and humility, uh, and probably inclusiveness also, because sometimes the children in our compound, there are about 8 of them. No, some of them, 2 or 3 of them will get together and exclude the others from the games they're playing. I mean, I tell my granddaughter, as much as possible, include everyone, and she'll complain. But they're very rough and they're very like this, and they have, well, I will talk to them. So I tell her, no? And it's a matter, I guess, of explaining to them why it's not good. Because if that happens to you and you get excluded, won't you feel bad? So that's what I tell her. No? But fidelity and generosity, I think those are very important items also. Courage, strength, obedience, humility, and self-sacrifice. And this is a bit more complicated maybe for the higher years, the older ones. Love of God is revealed in Christ, in Jesus, and answers their deepest needs, especially the teens. Because I think some of the Gospels are very applicable to them, especially when they are undergoing or experiencing some form of identity crisis or a crisis in confidence. Some of them really find it very difficult and couldn't get out of it even with our help. So I guess that's the time that we should consider professional help for them. That they share in Jesus' mission when they are gentle, kind, generous, and compassionate. That's how Jesus treated the people around him. No? And there really is nothing wrong with being kind, generous, and compassionate, because you would want other people to be like, to treat you like that also, as well as there are a lot more uh, benefits. You'll feel better about yourself if you are gentle, kind, generous, and compassionate. Loving bonds in the family strengthens connection with God. And seeing this in us, in the parents and the grandparents, I think should be the norm. And these bonds can be strengthened uh, every time they see us practicing and exercising these particular values and virtues. And things like fights between spouses, between parents, can be disconcerting for younger children. The best way to teach them actually is by example. Show them in the way that the parents, we parents and grandparents relate with each other, so that they have a model to follow. On the more technical side, we teach them how to handle other people, especially people who do the inappropriate things like asking for personal details. People who are mean and abusive online, who post embarrassing pictures of others, as well as probably your child, who share information that links back to them. And I would always tell my granddaughter, kindly talk to them, but firmly. If you want them to stop because they are hurting you, be firm. And if they don't stop, call the older people. Teach them the benefits and risks of using social media. And as far as we are concerned, the older ones, we have to keep up to date about social media platforms because this is the only way how we can understand those particular apps and we can better tell our children and grandchildren what to avoid, how to avoid these things, etc., how to navigate and get away from abusive uh, content and words. No? Well, we can ask them the platforms that they use or are popular to their particular group. Ask them to show you how this works. Suggest sites that help deepen their faith, if there are any, because some of the apps I myself use are for adults and they're not really for kids. Provide materials on values and virtues, materials that they can understand, like the comics that CFA comes up with on hard copy. Maybe they can come up with comics on soft copy, in soft copies. Use a child-friendly social media platform like YouTube Kids or Messenger Kids. We should also be careful and check age restrictions, though these are often not enforced. I personally do not know how to do this. So I asked my son to find out if there are age restrictions in the particular game or app that my granddaughter is using. Or better yet, use family social media accounts until the children are old enough to have their own accounts. And this will enable children to be supervised by you as well as connect with friends or play games or watch videos and with your help navigate social media. We can also come up with guidelines that they can easily understand and appreciate, like the time, how to balance their time in using social media apps or in playing games with their other activities like schooling now that schools are open, when to use them, their schedules, and how long they may engage in social media or use the gadgets. What to post and not to post. No? What are inappropriate, the use of respectful language, and not the language that some of the games are teaching them. No? Violent language, etc. Get consent of others before sharing their posts. So these are some respectful things that they can do before, let's say, before sharing the posts of others. These are some no-nos on what to post or not to post. Uh, do not include personal data in profiles like phone numbers, detailed addresses, date of birth. My mistake. In Facebook, I posted my date of birth. Now, every birthday, everybody knows that it's my birthday. But if it's possible in some other sites or some other apps, not to post such things. Not share this data with strangers, especially those they just met in doing something, no? Like playing a game. Not to share passwords, login data, etc., even with friends. because friends sometimes they get tempted to intrude into your child or your grandchild's apps. Other safe practices: teach them how to log out after using public computers, especially in internet shops or something, or in schools. Regularly check privacy and location settings. Other safe practices are disable features like simultaneous posting on multiple SOCMED sites. Actually, I don't know how to do this. Accept friend requests only from people they know, or they ask somebody else if they know the particular person who wants to befriend them, for example. Not to click on pop-ups because they may lead to pornography, to fraud and scams, etc. Block and report people posting inappropriate content. This can be done in Facebook and maybe some other apps. Talk to trusted adults about questionable posts. These are some of the things we can teach our kids. What's important is to get the kids' cooperation and agreement on the guidelines. And more importantly, show them that we adults also follow those guidelines. Otherwise, they'll just think they're not following the guidelines, so why should I? Well, aside from these directly applicable tips for deepening the spirituality of the heart in families in the digital age through relationships, there are some other things we can do, not directly using social media. For example, everyday prayers to our everyday loving God. No? Develop prayer as a relationship from a very young age. My granddaughter is 8 years old, and we are teaching her to pray heart prayers as well, like uh, telling God what made her happy during the day, what made her sad during the day, and we just hope that she really uh, understands these particular prayers, because even if she does not, at least the seed is there already. Let her experience God in loving relationships in the family, not only in terms of embracing and kissing, and she gets a lot of that from us, no? Especially the grandmother. Uh, but knowing and experiencing such loving relationships will stick to her, I hope, no? Until she gets older. Use social media whenever possible, as prayer guides, even as music, relaxing music, etc. Now, every day they call it family liturgies or rituals, reminders that God is always there with us every day. Uh, some examples are the Holy Eucharist. Uh, this could be something very central uh, as a formal liturgy for the family. Uh, when there are when there were no face-to-face classes, we used to hear mass very often online, and when our grandchild is not busy with schoolwork, we always include her in these masses. Family rituals are also probably Eucharists, like Sunday dinner with married children and grandchildren, daily breakfast or dinner with the younger kids, either before school or after school, Birthday meals with celebrants' favorite meal. Okay. Now, a lot of the older kids here, they already know how to pick the good restaurants or the more expensive restaurants. But when it's my birthday, they don't ask me anymore because they know what I'll answer. Shakey's. And they all groan in disappointment. Well, family meals is a sharing of blessings among families, within the family members, out with outsiders like food producers. It's a matter of telling them, do not waste your food because a lot of farmers planted your vegetable, took care of the pork, the pig that produced the pork, planted the rice, etc. A source of meaning and learning, advice through the sharing of stories and experiences. This is what we can do while having a meal. No? Include relevant Bible stories whenever possible, Bible and inspiring stories. This is very important because a lot of studies have already have been made that with improper nutrition, the brain gets stunted. Not only their learning, but the way probably they will also relate with others because there is always only one thing in their minds. Lack of food maybe, or lack of proper food. And very important, no mobile devices on the table. Well, if you're eating alone, probably uh, this should be acceptable. Visiting relatives as a family during fiestas, holidays, etc. We used to do this when we were younger, when I was younger. We go to Pampanga for the fiesta of my mom's place in San Fernando. We go to Pasig, that's where my mom's brother lives. We go to the fiesta in Baliwag, Bulacan to be with my father's relatives. And birthdays as well. But these days, there's not so much practice. We are a bit uh, more detached from our relatives, except relatives that are nearby, near us. No? For example, when my mother-in-law was still alive, uh, all her children would have lunch or Sunday lunch uh, in the house, with her. And during birthdays too, and during the fiesta, share not only material things with your relatives, but also our presence, being present with them, like when they are sick or in the hospital or something. Uh, when it's safe, let's bring the children. Comforting words, our care, and our love. My granddaughter cries a lot because uh, she loves to run and she falls very often. Try to tell them or teach them that our families are called to a mission. Graces shared are multiplied. Burdens shared are half. Giving is a source of meaning and grace. No one is so poor not to give, and no one is so rich not to receive. I guess these very profound quotations. Maybe we should explain it a little bit further to our children and grandchildren. Well, we brought our granddaughter once to San Miguel Parish because every Tuesday before the pandemic, the parish priest would give food to the homeless near our area. Actually, that Ayala Bridge near our place, there are squatters under the bridge. And some of the shanties are hanging under the bridge. The parish priest would gather them all every Tuesday. It's a regular schedule, so they get to know and they come regularly. And we contributed to this particular activity of the parish, and we sometimes participate. Like one time, we brought our granddaughter so that she can help distribute the food with the proper explanations, of course. If it does not take on the mission of sharing God's love, the family cannot be healthy and whole. It's like the other part, growing and then sharing, developing and then sharing what we've got, sharing our blessings with others. Being baptized Christian means we have social responsibilities as well, no? Justice, peace, and the integrity of creation. Well, during our time, when Father Ben and I were activists, we did a lot of this, even without the permission of my parents. Actually, my father was pro Marcos, so we did not see eye to eye when it comes to these particular issues. But on a milder level, some schools like Saint Scholastica has this program for elementary students. No, they bring the students to places like Quiapo, where there are vendors, cigarette vendors, and they assign the children to interview. Of course, these are supervised to interview the vendors there, not only cigarette vendors, but as well as the stall owners and even the street beggars in the area. Well, this is one way of showing the children that uh, we are in this particular life, kind of life, but there are others who are not as lucky as us. And there is something we can do. Many have observed that because of the newness of this particular aspect of our present life, more studies have to be made. And at the same time, more suitable material will need to be developed by Catholic media organizations for purposes of education, entertainment, and even gaming. I mentioned earlier the comics, the hard copy comics I saw in CFA. Maybe they can develop some soft copy comics. I don't know if they have the capability to develop games, relevant games. Father Ben,
Yes, yes, Chacho.
uh, this is about the end of my presentation.
Okay,
And what's next? Actually, if we still have time to break out into groups, I also made some reflection points
okay.
that can be used now if we are going to break out rooms.
Yes, we are going on. We can go to breakout groups, but maybe some people, maybe some of us there would like to have some coffee break, you know?
Okay,
So let's have a coffee break for 15 minutes. We come
okay,
back. We come back at 3 5
3:05. Okay,
3:05, and then after 3:05 we will go into a personal reflection with your guide questions, and then we will go to our Zoom rooms for sharing before we come up in the plenary session. Okay, so
okay.
our
So might
yeah,
as well post some of these reflection points that may be helpful uh,
yes,
during personal meditation time and the group meetings.
okay. And also there will be like the group sharing will be 20 minutes. the Zoom rooms, and then we'll come together as a plenary. Thank you very much. So now
Okay.
now we will have our break now, and we come back at 3:05. Thank you. Thank you. Now, it is now the moment of sharing with each other as a full body. We listen to each other. And normally we ask for volunteers. And then when people don't look at the screen, that means they want to be called. So who would like to start the sharing? Of course, you can share of the other things that you feel more important, more significant, even beyond the guide questions or guide reflection points which Chacho prepared for us. Thank you. Okay. Our okay. I think Edwin is ready to share. Oh, you're muted.
Sister Sita will share.
Okay. Sister Lucita, carry on.
Sita.
Okay. So for our reflection, how we can we see some
You're muted.
okay, sorry. So basically, we discover also some of the cultural. There is the other direction of the cultural differences, especially in our time due to the social media. So in our um, reflection, we discovered that since the spirituality of the heart is a universal value, it seems that it is not a hindrance. So especially for this time when some of the children, even during mealtime, they sometimes they will not join in eating together, or even in eating together, they cannot focus on eating because they are still texting with other persons. So even in that situation, what the family need, especially the parents, is to discipline that during eating time, they can stop using the cell phone. So that means the role of the parents is very important in instilling or integrating unity, wherein there is kumustahan on what had happened, and to integrate the spirituality of the heart in a more personal way, in a very personal way, especially during mealtime. Then for number 2, the cultural and social practices can also be a means, especially in that case, wherein the elders cannot also give time to the family because of their busy time. So this business could also be helped by means of giving time to the family. So even if the parents are busy with their work, they also need to give time to communicate with them and to connect to themselves and to connect also to God through prayers, through praying together, celebrating birthdays, appreciating the little successes that they have, and even this connectivity through social media can also be enforced, because even if we are far from each other, but the social media can connect us also. So I think that's all.
Thank you. Thank you, Sita. Would anybody like to add a rejoinder or make comments? You can also ask questions to Chacho. He welcomes your questions too. Yeah. Thank you. Yes, Phil. We cannot see you, Phil. Your video.
I did not raise my hand, but anyway,
Oh,
since you
okay.
asked me. Anyway, I think what is important here is that do we realize what spirituality of the heart is in practice? So in a way, that is my question. Because when you talk about spirituality of the heart, as we try really to inculcate it among our members as well as it's something that just recently came up, I think not many years ago, but that was of course something that classically introduced. But anyway, what I'm asking here, what I would like to say is that it has to start from the parents, no? And then the popes, I think, from John the 20th, from Pope John Paul, I think Benedict, and we encouraging us to be cyber citizens. I think that was there was what they were emphasizing. What do you mean by cyber citizens? We should parents should also know what to be a member of that, but should be a citizen of cyber. In other words, the use of social media through cyberspace now. That whatever we post can never be erased. I mean to say, it's always there, and somebody can always open it up. No, that's one point I'm going to. So in other words, we have to be very careful when we post anything in social media. No, it cannot be erased. That's what the experts are always telling us. Secondly, I think when we talk about the spirituality of the heart, we have really to start from the parents who considers this spirituality of the heart, which is a lifestyle, a mission. And that mission is to be exercised in the family. And that family will always, the children will always look up to the parents, how they exercise that spirituality of the heart, which is compassion, forgiveness, love, and mercy. Do they practice those virtues? So in other words, even if we say that we use the social media, and especially at the moment that in many instances, social media becomes really, in the family, is the one that take care of the children, no, not the parents. So in other words, how do we really inculcate on them the values which we like them to know while using the social media? First of all, if we are busy, we usually give the cell phone to the kid, no, and that entertains them. In other words, in that case, the cell phone becomes the babysitter. I think in many instances that the same thing. Say, for instance, if we don't like the children to be bothering us, we give them the gadgets, and they keep themselves busy with that. So, in terms of guidance in relation to that, it's really how do we practice the spirituality, the values of the spirituality of the heart, which is compassion, mercy, love, and forgiveness. How do we do that? No? That's our mission, I think, as parents, no? Our mission as a family. But we want the spirit of the heart, therefore, to prevail in our life, to be the guiding spirit in our life. And I think that is something that we have to look at too. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Phil. We always get something profound from you.
Sorry, maybe not.
Thank you. Raising the ante. Okay. Any other? From Ermin community. Yes. Okay. There's a finger there being pointed to another sister. Okay. Can we listen to that person? You're muted. You're muted. Good.
So good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Our sharing focus more on concrete examples, and for me, I share something as an experience from Orchis. Orchis is just a kinder, pre-elementary level, and so when Father Phil was talking about the ideally should it start really from the family about inculcating all these values of the heart. But then I also see the complementary value of the school. And that is what I would like to share, because in many ways, parents are so busy. Many parents are so busy, and so they don't have much time for their children. And so many of these values are neglected. So many of the children would be very selfish. Many of the children would not even appreciate prayer and things like that. And so when I was at Orchis, there was this first thing that we did, and that was to inculcate the values of the heart. And so on the blackboard was a very big image of the heart of Jesus. And the very basic thing there was to love like Jesus, to love like the heart of Jesus. And so one concrete example was one of the children usually did not have a baon, snacks, no? And so one time I said, oh, you have a classmate here. She doesn't have anything to eat. Who have something to share? And several of the children ran and they shared something about their snacks. So to me, that was a concrete example of how this, the value, so values formation, so the value of love, the value of compassion, the value of even friendship, you know? And another time, when I was also in my hometown, I heard this story of one child, our neighbor. In the school, the family did not pray at all during meal times. And then here came this grade 1 child who was taught by the teacher about prayer before meals. And I think the teacher who taught them about this prayer was so inspiring that when this child went home and then they were about to have the meal, and then the father, the mother started already eating. And then the child said, hey, stop! My teacher told me we have to pray. And everybody stopped. No, everybody stopped. And so they said, oh, sige, let's pray. Oh, you lead the prayer. And the child led the prayer. And so since after that, the family started to pray. And so what I'm trying to say here is the complementarity of the family and the school, parents and the teachers. No? So sometimes parents don't have time, and so through the teachers in the school, they can be a complementary to the parents. So the other sister also mentioned about almost the same things in another school, because that sucks. And even our aspirants, they mentioned also about listening to their classmates and to the family about the values of listening to one another, especially meal times when there is no cell phone allowed and things like that. And that was also mentioned by Brother Cacho. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sister. Wonderful. Would you like to comment, Joe, or we will ask others first to share before your comments? I see Jun Tan, but he is not showing himself on video.
Jun,
Okay, Jun.
pakita ka daw. Father, after na lang siguro.
Yes, after. June, are you there? Okay, it's not there. Sister Robin, would you like to say something, Robin? You're muted, yeah.
Thank you, Ben. Yes, from our group, some of the things already been said that we agree, but of course it all came from Chaco's wonderful, very, very practical as well as wise words around the family in relation to the whole challenge of the social media. But thank you, Chaco, because you were living what you talked about, and your granddaughter, and you're doing it all. You're living that spirituality of the heart. Anyway, yes, Pauline, the PNG, talked about, she said about how children today are so smart. Yeah, and I suppose we can learn a lot from the children. But Pauline also I interested how she said that the social media is a culture in itself. And I was thinking, yes, it's kind of a global world that we're all caught up in now. Another one was from Nareen. She spoke about, as others have said, about the need for personal discipline. And she talked about the formation of ourselves with all of this. And Chaco spoke about the parents teaching by example. And Nareen also said about that we are invited for a formation of, she said, formation of the heart and of the mind, that in this context or new world we have to do. But Nareen, that touched me a lot because it seems she had such a compassion for the parents of today, and that's been spoken about how busy they are. But she also talked about the pandemic, the culture that we're all caught up in. And so, yeah, the spirituality of the heart, from just my, it's a bit related maybe, but so how many of us are religious and also in education with young children. But I was thinking, today is the first day of spring here in Melbourne. And so also there's big sports happening tonight. And so as well as the discipline, because in a way kids can don't put your phone away, don't do only 1 hour, don't. But also, like with the sport, I saw it at the weekend. Parents and grandparents come together for their little picnic while the kids are doing the football so I'm just saying that to bring back some balance, and it's in our Australian culture, we love sport. So it's an opportunity for no social media, everyone's together at the basketball or at the football, or so that's to kind of capitalize or rejoice in that one, to nurture that and build that one up. Yeah, that's probably enough. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you, Robin. Any other comment, or reflection, or question? Okay. Okay. So if there is none, Sister Carmen, are you there? Okay. Shy girl. Okay, Chacho, your if you have your final remarks.
Thank you, Father Ben, for this opportunity. And what I'd like to, I guess, emphasize is that while it is really difficult to be a parent, no? And it's also equally difficult to be a spouse, no? Uh, what what's really important, I guess, and this I cannot overemphasize, is our presence in our children's lives, learning how to listen to them and accompanying them. Because all of the things we talk about in the spirituality of the heart, we can only share with them, we can only live with them, we can only show them and teach them if we are with them. And we can make this relevant to them if we listen to them and we go with them through this journey. It may be painful for some parents because of time constraints, no? And I had this when I was still working. But I think uh, we can still do something about it. And once we are able to do these things, I guess we will have not only a better relationship with our children, but our children can really begin to understand, appreciate, and love the spirituality that we are sharing with them. That's all.
Thank you very much, Chacho. And thank you also, Marlyn, even though she's not
It's
around.
working.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
give her our gratitude
Yeah.
I
and
will.
profound appreciation. Uh, the presentation today uh, seeks to explore the impact of the spirituality of the heart in a family setting in the modern times, which we call the age of the fourth industrial revolution. The opening prayer itself on video, a song, already introduced us to the whole wide world of today. God is all, and the Son and the Holy Spirit, in the world, in the cosmos. After that, Chacho brought us, and Marlyn brought us to a travelogue by first looking at the past and what Father Jules Chevalier said about the spirituality of the heart and the modern evils of his time. And from there, Chacho brought us to the present, the situation of today, conflicts, violence, what we would consider as indicators of modern evils, including the situation of the fourth industrial revolution. And then he zeroed in on how does the spirituality of the heart operate according to the age levels within the family. What are the do's and the don'ts as expressions of love and care, which are not necessarily restrictive, but are actually guiding. So for what's appropriate for children, what's appropriate for the teenagers, what's appropriate for the young adults, and what's appropriate for parents and grandparents who are supposed to give the modeling by example. And Chacho and Marlyn introduced us to, he repeated, he said, when we accompany our children and grandchildren, we do that kindly and firmly. And that's Father George Chevalier's spirituality. Fortiter sed suaviter. Fortiter sed suaviter. Fortiter meaning firmly, suaviter kindly, suavely, nicely. And he talked about when he talked about the accompaniment, being present, emphasizing the presence of the parents, the presence of the family to each other. That's a language which has been used in the biblical and theological and spiritual field. That has been the mystery of the incarnation. The mystery of the incarnation, how God made himself present to us. God, Emmanuel, God with us, interpreted as being present by the parents and by the whole family to each other. And then Chacho also introduced us later on to the spirituality of the heart is not just for the family from within for its own sake. The family also has a mission. And the mission of being called to a mission to multiply the graces of God through like JPIC and other ways of serving the church and the community and the world. And in this sense, we have a very profound journey that the family is not just for children, not just for teenagers, not just for the grandchildren for itself, but also for people, for the world, for the church, for the mission to participate in God's mission. What I wanted to add, as an observation, as a comment, is the presentation of Chacho and Marlyn. They came up with a language, a secular language, if you may, ordinary language, that puts into practice what would have otherwise been a difficult metaphors of spirituality of the heart, the difficult metaphors, theological metaphors, biblical metaphors of the theology of the heart into a real practice in the real world. And I would like to suggest that lay people should continue to articulate the experience of spirituality of the heart with the language of the lay. It didn't sound churchy to me, and it didn't sound churchy or specialized language of theology and spirituality, and yet it was very real. So I wish that our lay partners would continue to teach us, religious and clergy and the Chevalier family, to articulate the spirituality of the heart, even using the language of the lay. Because if we continue to use our language, we will just be facing the mirror. We will not be, we will just be patting ourselves, and then we'll be converting them to become like us. And we will never understand the operations of lay, of the life of the lay, of how to care for children, how to care for rebellious teenagers, even though we pass through that life. So thank you very much, Chacho and Marlyn, for introducing us to this new language of the spirituality of the heart, the language of the lay family person, articulating the spirituality of the heart. And thank you very much to all of us who are gathered together. Thank you to Kathy, to the Corviti team for this formation team for this opportunity. Next week is another exciting, next Thursday is another exciting presentation because we will then talk of the spirituality of the heart in the public square. And this will be given to us by two lay people, one Filipina and one Vietnamese. In their own experience, how will they articulate the spirituality of the heart as lay people in their fields of apostolate, in their fields of work, in the public square? We continue to explore this very rich field of the spirituality of the heart in Asia, Pacific Island, Australia. Thank you very much. And now we will have our final prayer.
Father Ben?
Yes.
Father Ben?
Yes, Chacho.
One short comment.
Mhm.
I sent a copy of the presentation to Father Ben and to Sister Kathy. And I guess you know their email address. You can just ask them for a copy of this presentation. This has no pictures and no music, so that it will fit in the email. Otherwise, I will not be able to send it at 50 megabytes. You know? So it has no pictures.
Yeah.
It has no music.
Yeah. Thank you, Chacho. For those of us who are techie, don't worry about the weight, the volume of your presentation, because there are ways of sending it. There's ways of, like if you use the gmail.com, you can use it, in full. Or there's another platform to use that. I forget now the other one. Google too, So don't worry. But as usual in the practice of Core Vitae, all the presentations, the PowerPoint presentations will be sent to all the participants, to all the those who are in our mailing list. And we will also and we will be able to watch the presentation of Chacho and all other presentations in our YouTube channel. So Chacho, you can go to the YouTube channel maybe after 2 days. Then you will find yourself there talking in YouTube, talking about the spirituality of the heart in the family in the age of the fourth industrial revolution. Thank you, Chacho. Now, I invite you to pray for the blessing. We get in touch with our heart, with the heart of Jesus in our heart. With the hearts of the people, especially those in need, in our heart. With the heart of creation, the groaning of creation in our heart. And allow this heart of God, the heart of the people, the heart of creation, and our own hearts to have that intense encounter, to be able to fathom each other's heartbeats and sentiments, and to share the sentiments of the heart of Jesus, to meet in the heart of Jesus. We ask the Blessed Mother Mary, Our Lady of the Sacred Heart, to accompany us always and to lead us to the heart of her Son, Jesus. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. God bless you. Thank you very much. See you again Thursday.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, sister. Bye-bye, Father Phil. Bye-bye, other sisters.
Thank you, Chacho. Thank you, Marlyn. Great.
Bye-bye, Juntan. Jun, you show yourself.
Juntan, pakita ka. Show yourself.